guys, I'm Elegant and welcome to another Pokevlog. So this week's Pokevlog is what you've all been waiting for. Yes, this week is the spotlight on the Hoenn region. So the Hoenn region was either a love it or you hate it region. A lot of people loving it because it was either their first game or it was just really amazing, and I'm going to be going over why it was so good through this video. And a lot of people hated it just because of the fact it was different from the first two generations. The first two generations sort of moved on from one another and were linked together, and literally the Kanto region and the Johto region were together and had the same Pokemon League, and it was basically the same game just from a different perspective, literally the other side of the Pokemon League. So the Hoenn region was a big step up with graphical changes, gameplay changes, a lot of mechanics changed in the game. So a lot of people disliked it because of that, but I know over this video I'm hopefully going to be encouraging you to like this game or to like these regions because they were so good. And of course the Hoenn region was introduced in the Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald games. Got a lot of hate because of big difference at that point. So hopefully, like I said, I hope that I can change you and convert you all to Hoenn lovers like me. So Hoenn actually means a rich relationship, it means kind of a balance between humans and Pokemon, but also a balance between land and sea, which is kind of the theme of the game, because you've got an unbalance between the sea and the land because of the two evil gangs, Team Magma and Team Aqua, and Groudon and Kyogre. So you want to, basically the whole idea is bringing a balance to the whole region and the whole world. Also Rayquaza helps with this, but the actual region itself, the Hoenn region, is sort of a split between land and water as well, land and sea, which fits with the name and the meaning of it. So 135 new Pokemon were introduced in this game, which was more than the Johto region actually introduced. So most of the Pokemon that you could catch were just out of these 135 Pokemon. You could actually catch a few of the older Pokemon in this game. And a whole bunch of new mechanics were introduced, which are amazing. I'm just going to go over a few here. So you got the addition of cutscenes, sandstorms, cracks which you have to use bicycles to go over, water rapids and that you can dive underwater, like underwater terrain, acro and match bikes, and double battles and Pokemon contests were all sort of introductions of new game mechanics, and that's just to name a few of them. There's so many more of sort of terrains, just new gameplay features and new sort of puzzles. It was a brilliant game with all this new all these new ideas, and that's why I love it so much. It's got all these new things. But not only it had all of that, all these other new things that even some of the newer games don't have, it also is the biggest region so far, with the most routes, the most towns and cities that don't have a gym, in a total of 7, and the biggest water area out of any of the games, and it's the most, it's got the most undiscovered islands at the south of the map. So yeah, it's got the most undiscovered sort of areas that look like they should be discovered, because I know a few of the other regions like the Unova have an area around the region. It looks like you could discover it, but it's sort of just it's sort of a landmass around the region rather than certain areas that looks like you should be able to go to, because at the bottom, which you'll see on the screen now, there's a few little islands that you can't actually get to, so it's kind of strange that that's happening, but it could be a little bit of a hint of what's to come, maybe a remake of Ruby Sapphire. And maybe we get some additional areas, because it's kind of confusing that they put those sort of islands in and yet we can't go to them. So there was also an addition of temperamental areas. It was the first region to have temperamental areas. The temperamental areas being the Mirage Island, which is an island that only appears, I think, when you have a certain Pokemon ID number, and you go to a man in Pacific Longtown, and he tells you whether you can see Mirage Island today, and if you can go to it. And what you can get there is a Wynot. There's lots of Wynots in the grass, and you can only catch a Wynot. And a special berry, which I've forgotten the name of, which I'm sorry about, but there's a temperamental island that you can only get when you see when you get that certain Pokemon. So it was very difficult to get, and to be honest, I never got to Mirage Island. I tried forever to get there, but I never did. The other temperamental place is a Mirage Tower, so that only stays there for a temperamental time until you get to the top and complete it. This was the first example of the cracks in the floor where you had to cycle over it without stopping on the match bike. So I think it was the match bike. The acro bike lets you go on and do wheelies and stuff. The match bike lets you go fast. So yeah, that was the first demonstration of that. The second demonstration, I believe, is actually in Rayquaza's tower. But also, not only is this the biggest region, considering all the different factors I've just mentioned, it's actually the most non-linear, it has the most non-linear routes in it, meaning that, I can't remember what routes they were, but the sea area where you got Sotopolis, Pacifilog, and Moss Deep City is sort of a square shape, and you can go left, right, up or down. There's no really restrictions to the direct path you've got to take. Where in every other game, in every other route, there's some sort of a straight path you've got to take to go to one area. Whereas in the routes in the Hoenn region, there is sort of, you can go where you want, and you can go battle different trainers, and you can go to two different towns from the same route without having to go take one direct path, which is a really quite interesting thing. I mean, there's boulders in the way at some parts of it, but pretty much it's kind of a free roaming square area, which is a big step up for Pokemon. I don't even think in Unova they have areas like that. I mean, you have the desert, but the desert is kind of linear, and you can only get to another town by going straight up. So yeah, that was a quite interesting thing. And also, not just the thing I've just said, it has the least amount of gates between the routes, meaning that the game is much more flowing, because the gates are kind of what you have between the different towns and the routes. So for example, in the Unova region, you have a gate between the desert and Nimbasa City, and you have one of them basically between every town, every new route, whatever. In a lot of the games, on Pokemon games, you have these. But yeah, Pokemon Emerald, Ruby and Sapphire had the least of these, meaning it was the most sort of flowing game, yet it had the most number of routes and towns, which was kind of crazy. And also, it's the only game that's not on the only region that's not been on the DS yet, meaning it's the biggest game, it's the most flowing, that's on the least advanced platform, making it a pretty impressive game, I must say. It was made just, I suppose, under 10 years ago, and we're going to have probably the anniversary in next year, I think it is, for Ruby and Sapphire. So hopefully we can get, well, the 10th anniversary next year, so hopefully we can get some remakes, because I really do want those. Also, this leads people to think that there's going to be remakes, just because it's not been on the DS yet, and, well, every other region has been on the DS other than this, so a lot of people think that's the reason why. This should either be just generally on the DS, or this should be the last remake, but I really do hope they remake it. And it's just a damn brilliant region. It's not, just being the fact that it's not been on the DS yet is not a good enough reason compared to, it's just a damn good reason. It's just a damn good game to be on the DS, because all the new features they introduced that just have not been carried on into the newer games. I think it was such an amazing game, it was so underrated. So not only was it so brilliant with all the game mechanics, it had some pretty incredible Pokemon. For example, Spinda was a sort of a bouncing rabbit Pokemon. Not too interesting at first, but it has spots on it. And these spots have over 4 billion different possible combinations of spots on it. So every Spinda is going to be different pretty much. You're not going to get the two of the same Spinda by chance, to be honest. So this is a really big thing. Like, there's over 4 billion possible combinations of spots on Spindas. And that doesn't even take into consideration of shinies. Just double that if you want to know how many different Spindas you can actually get with shinies and non-shinies and spots. It's just incredible. 4 billion, and that's just the rounded version. It's actually above that. Another interesting Pokemon is Slacking, which actually has the highest total stat of any non-legendary Pokemon. Even to this day, out of the all the regions so far, even the Sinnoh and the Unova region still don't have a higher total base stat of a non-legendary. It's actually, Slacking is among the legendaries. It's like in the middle of the legendaries of the stat total, if not towards the top of it. So it has an annoying ability which actually causes it to only attack once every 2 turns, which kind of balances it out, but it is just an incredible, you can't beat it. It's actually above Kyurem. It's above Kyurem in its total stats, total base stats. and it's joint 14th and most powerful, drawn with Kyogre and Groudon, all the 2 legendaries from the 3rd generation, the Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. And it's also drawn with Regigigas, which of course is quite a very powerful Pokemon itself. Yeah, they all have 670 base total stats, so it's pretty incredible. Another stupidly crazy Pokemon that was introduced in this generation was Shedinja. It has 1 HP. The weirdest Pokemon ever, but it has the ability Wonder Guard, which actually causes only super effective moves to actually affect it, making it one of the most difficult Pokemon to battle, especially if you don't have any super effective moves against it, because you just cannot kill it unless you have Poison or Burn. Anyway, you can do either of those by non-damaging moves. It's just a very difficult Pokemon to deal with. Not only does it have all these new game mechanics and awesome Pokemon, Hoenn has the most sort of new trainers in the game. So what I'm trying to say there is that you meet a lot of new trainers that you see develop and grow in the game, where you don't really see that in any of the other games. So you have May, Brendan, which is basically the 2, either your rival and yourself. And you also have Wally, who you catch a Pokemon for, who starts out. Steven, you might not think he actually starts out at the same time of year, but he kind of does, because you see his Pokemon growing level a few times, you see him throughout the game, so Steven's actually quite a young new trainer. Wallace is actually somewhat of a new young trainer. It moves on from the last gym to be in the Elite Four in the Emerald game. Flannery actually takes over the gym after her dad, and Tate and Lisa were the 2 little children in the 7th gym in Mossdeep City, so they were new trainers as well. And that's just only taking into consideration the sort of new trainers that we have proof that they're new. There's quite a few other trainers that look like they should be new trainers as well. This is also the first place where most gym leaders had a second role, or a second role was associated with the gym. So Roxanne was a teacher, Watson was involved with the power station, Flannery was involved with the elderly care, or at least her father was involved with the elderly care, who was actually the previous owner of the gym. Tate and Lisa was actually involved in the space program. Hoenn and Wallace, the last gym leaders, were actually both coordinators as well. And this is the only game where you have a father. It's the only game where you meet your father or know about your father, who actually is a gym leader as well. So that's a pretty cool thing, I suppose. There's one little bad thing I could say about this game, which I know is going to be a lot of big focus in this, because I've been talking about so many good things about the game. So one little bad thing was that it seemed of a bit of a lack of a post-game adventure. But this was kind of made up by an amazing Battle Frontier that was introduced with Battle Frontier Brains. I've never completed the Battle Frontier in Emerald. I really tried, but it was very difficult to. Of course, the Battle Frontier wasn't available. Ruby and Sapphire making the game a little bit dry and lacking, but Emerald made up for this, definitely, with Battle Frontier and the Battle Tower. So I think the adventure part was actually included into the Battle Frontier. And you may be wondering what I'm on about, but there was a hidden Smeargle Pass, if you ever found that in Pokemon Emerald. And I found that to be quite fun to be able to find and get into, although it didn't have very much inside it. It was a bit disappointing once you got into it, other than you being proud of being able to find it. And also you couldn't actually fight your rival when they had their final evolution of their starter, which did kind of suck. And so the game kind of did feel like you could have progressed them further, because a lot of trainers you couldn't fight at their maximum potential, and there seemed a lot of things cut short in the game towards the end, which I think is the only downfall. But this could mean a remake, because there's a lot of unexplored islands, unexplored trainers. There's a lot of just things that just could be finished off and added to, which I think would definitely be a brilliant reason for a remake. So there's just generally a lot of things you couldn't do, but you should be able to do, and I just think there's going to be a remake. I really hope there is going to be a remake. It's the best reason to make a remake, that there's just so much you can do with it. So yeah, there's just all the different styles of the games from others. It's just, the Hoenn region just makes it so good. And if you still hate the Hoenn region, I'm going to give you a reason right now why you should not hate the Hoenn region. because if it wasn't for the Hoenn region, you wouldn't have running shoes and you would not have Nuzlocks. The two things that are so popular in Pokemon, and it made such a big difference in Pokemon that I think we cannot say the Hoenn region was a bad region, because just because of those two things. It was an amazing region though. So anyway, let's move on to the question of the week. So this week's question of the week is sort of another Sporkle test. So I do, in every generation I'm doing sort of a Sporkle quiz. It's Sporkle's website, if you don't know what it is. It's just a website that does sort of quizzes on each generation and each of the games, so you can go check that out, and in the link in the description you can also see the link, or this link to the Sporkle website in the sidebar in the video somewhere. I got 45 out of 90. I only got half marks despite me always talking about the Hoenn region, or me always loving it. But my reason for that is because this quiz was a very difficult quiz, and after doing the quiz I did realise how many spelling mistakes I made, and that's why a lot of the things didn't come up, like Vended Turf. I can't even pronounce that anymore because I was trying to work out how it was pronounced and how it's spelled for ages, and it just screwed up the name in my head. So yeah, there's a few weird spellings in the third generation, but yeah, go try that out yourself and comment down below what you get and what you think about it. So I want to say thank you for watching, and I do hope you like the Hoenn region if you didn't before. So I'll see you next week.